Yeah. After this, the price definitely gotta go up.
What's going on, guys? It is Peeps with Tweets. I am your host, Brandon Verastro, and today I got a very, very special guest. He is a hip-hop journalist beyond belief. This man is actually like, I have a lot of friends throughout this journalism business, and I would say this man is not just one of my best friends. He probably is my best friend throughout this. We talk all the time about everything. I mean, we've literally, I don't even remember how we followed each other. Honestly, still have to this day have no clue how that happened and how we message each other. But he is a writer for What You Expect. He has his own Medium page he normally posts on, writes for Passion Weiss as well, and NC Views. My guy, Caleb Catlin. Caleb, how we doing, my brother?
Doing wonderful. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm chilling. I hope the intro was good enough. Again, I said it before the podcast. I'm doing these all on the fly, so hopefully I did you justice there.
Yeah. You've got tons of questions. You didn't want to spoil anything.
Yes. There's a lot to talk about in this episode, and the reason I made that tweet is because I am excited. There is a lot to you. Honestly, there's a lot to you, man. It's going to be a good one. But I'm always going to start with these podcasts off with your bio, and I kind of want you to explain your bio. If you can pull that up for me and kind of just explain it so people know who you are. I figured that's how people most recognize you or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, my bio is glaringly simple. Again, you kind of get everything that you want out of me just by scrolling a little bit and see the first tweet.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I'm a writer. Using journalists is always like shocking to me. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you're like a freelance journalist." I was like, "Shoot, I write sometimes. I don't know about all that." But I mean, yeah, I wrote for Passion of the Weiss. Shout out Jeff. I write for Medium because I like to grind it out the mud myself. I don't like to wait on others sometimes. What you expect? I got a column over there, Fresh Goods. I talk about music, movies, whatever the hell I feel like talking about. And NC Views, that was my stomping grounds. The first place that I really started really getting into writing.
Shout out Matt.
Shout out Richie.
And it's interesting because I never really use journalists either, but I mean in formal stuff I do, but like in general, I'm a music writer. Is it like I feel like it's very weird to use journalist if you're not
Yeah, I mean, if I'm just writing on like Medium and stuff. Like I'm not really. I guess if I'm not really like getting the funds out of it, I just don't necessarily put that label on immediately. I guess I am, and I had talked to people about this. They're like, "Bro, you're a journalist," and I'm like, I mean, that's kind of crazy. Like, so one night I think about an idea. I was like, "Cool, I'm gonna knock that out in like 3 hours, and then I'll get back to it later."
Yeah, you have a crazy work ethic, which we're going to get to later on. But I'll have to start off with your fucking background because I don't remember what day this was. I think it was after talking about an article I was doing that I needed help on. And we just started, talking to shits about everything. Actually, it might have been after the podcast I did for New Faces, the music one that we did, me, you, Richie, and Cam. And we were just talking about your whole fucking story. So I kind of want you to explain your story to me because it's literally batshit insane. Like I don't know where you were born to where you are now. I have no fucking clue. Like I still there's so much to it, and I want you to explain it to us here for Peeps with Tweets.
I guess I can give you like the Cliff Notes version because I would be sitting here for a good 30 minutes just talking random stories. I would dip off into other places, but the Cliff Notes versions, I was born in Birmingham, Alabama. My dad is black and my mom is white, hence why I have the red hair, the blue eyes, but my dad's black. I always compare it to like Halsey or like Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy, or like more recently Drake's kid, who was yeah, that one's probably the more obvious because like you definitely couldn't tell, but like since it's Drake's kid, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But besides that, I was born in Birmingham. my dad was in the Coast Guard not too long after. We moved around a lot. They split. I lived with my mom for a while. Still never stopped moving. I went from Birmingham to Atlanta to Jacksonville to Phoenix to Pensacola. And then I moved in with my dad around the 6th grade. He was in the Coast Guard and I was in Puerto Rico for 6th grade. Moved to Lakeland, Florida, which is like somewhere between Tampa and Orlando. I lived there from 7th grade to the end of 10th grade. Then I moved to Homer, Alaska, 4 hours outside of Anchorage. Then I moved to Houston, Texas, lived there for a couple years, and now I'm here. San Pedro, California, right outside LA. It's like an hour away.
Bro, holy shit! You just named like 15 cities. Like I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure I've missed something like along the way. Like I think I lived in like very like some small town in California, like right next to the Arizona border for like a couple weeks until I moved to Pensacola. I think I lived in Boston once, or maybe that's just where my grandma was at, where my dad's mother was at. Yeah, I've been all over the place, and like I drove, not me, but like we from the Florida trip, 2016, summer of 2016. It was the greatest time of my life. We drove from Lakeland, Florida, all the way to Alaska, and then I flew out to Phoenix to see my mom.
You drove from Florida to Alaska?
Not me, but yeah, we packed all our stuff. We went on one big road trip. We stopped in Alabama to see my aunties. And then Georgia, I saw my aunt Danielle. Then we drove all the way through, stopped in California. Like we got to see Malibu, got to see a little bit of LA, but we more went around it. Yeah, and then we kept driving up, went to Seattle once. I love Seattle. I really wish I was there instead of California. I mean, I'm sure you can get into my love-hate relationship with California at some point.
Yeah.
I don't avoid talking about my disdain for this area. Yeah, and then we drove through Canada, like the very west side of Canada, all the way through Alaska. And then I stayed there for like a day. I flew out to Phoenix to see my mom for the rest of the summer. And then I flew back.
That is fucking nuts. Does moving around ever get tiring? Like it has to at some point. Like, or are you just like used to it now?
A part of me is used to it. A part of me is like, you know, I want to stay in these certain areas that I grow fond of. Like, I don't know, with Homer, Alaska, like it took me a while to realize like I actually liked it there. And it was like a small thing. It was like small things that I loved about it. I was doing I was doing radio at the time. You know, I fell in love there. I was moving around a lot. I had the best sandwich I ever had there. It was very local. Yeah. And yeah, so I grew to appreciate that. I didn't love when I moved from Houston because that was like the first place I could really call home in like forever. So yeah, I mean, it does get a little tiring, but at some point you grow a little bit numb to it, and like the running away aspect of it, it gives you a chance to just absorb new experiences.
Yeah, I guess that's the one good thing about it is you get to see a whole bunch of places that, you know, maybe you wouldn't have seen otherwise. Maybe you will later on in life, but you know, as a young kid, you just get to fucking see everything. And you were mostly down south too. Was there ever, I mean, cause like as a kid, like you're probably changing friend groups all the time. Like you probably don't keep up with every single person you grew up with, whatever place you're in. Like, does that ever get annoying? Cause like me personally, I can't imagine the friends that I've made in Scranton and then go live in fucking 17 different cities right after that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Did you just like stop even trying to make friends at that point?
I mean, they all sort of rooted each other out after a while. Like the people that you really care about will stick around and be friends with you throughout all of it. Like my friend Kemian, Ak, or AK. That's what I call him. My friend Travis. Those guys are from Florida. And then, but yeah, besides that, I don't really keep like a long list of friends because, I eventually move and I get used to those people living their own lives. Like I can't expect myself to force conversation with people. That and it comes along where people from like Lakeland, where I stayed the longest, I eventually learned like how they actually are, or they grow to be something else, and I'm just like, I don't need to be friends with these people.
Right.
Like I don't know. I guess I kind of value my like real friend circle a bit more than that. Yeah, there were plenty of like acquaintances and people that I called friends in school, but like, that's what happens when you're there every day. Your real friends are people that are gonna, talk to you, whether you're there every day or if they really care about you, they'll text you, see how you're doing, etc.
Yeah, I mean that goes for anywhere, but especially for you, considering like I said, like you're probably you have to make new friends along the way during school and all that stuff. So having that set friend group is hard, but I guess you're able to make do with the kids of Florida and probably Houston and Alaska or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to talk about Florida though, because you named a couple cities you lived in Florida. I mean, the state of Florida is very wild. I don't know if it's all wild or not. That's what I kind
No,
of want you to
it's all
answer.
wild. It's all
Like,
wild. Every bit of it. It's just there's different levels in which like I separate it into three sections. There's the Panhandle, there's the Middle, and then there's Miami. There's Miami Wild. I've been there for a little bit, and they get crazy over there, right? There's the Middle, which is some sort of bridge between the two. It's like weirdly country, but then there's also like the Disney World white folks.
oh yeah. Okay.
And then there's like, yeah. So there's tons of like areas in which there's different kinds of people, and then the Panhandle is all like backwoods, like very very country. It might as well be like an extension of like Alabama. Yeah, it might as well be, because like Pensacola is the worst place. There was this guy. I lived in Pensacola for my 4th and 5th grade year, and there was this guy that always used to walk across the street knocking on the door asking to bum a cigarette from my mom or the grandparents. He would always ask for a cigarette, and one day he ended up getting busted, and the whole house was evacuated from there.
Holy
It
shit.
was very ominous. Yeah. Yeah, it's wild over there, and I have no interest in ever going back to Pensacola.
No, I wouldn't either. I have no interest in really going to Florida in general. Maybe Miami at most, but that's about it.
I mean, if you want your little Disney Channel, not your Disney World experience, you can get that there. But I went to Disney World, and I mean, the experience was fine. I could have probably went without it, but like, it's fine. Like, I understand the appeal. It's very wholesome.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess I'm not a very wholesome person.
Bro, if you're like, I'm 25. I have no interest in Disney characters anymore or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Like, maybe the Harry Potter shit, but that's pretty much.
I haven't went to Bro, but like I don't know. Disney is fine. It's cute. Like I do like some of the Disney stuff. It's just it's a lot. Like you really get a feel for how capitalism works when you go to a place like Disney World, because you're like, man, they're sapping these Moana characters dry.
They really do, bro. It's fucking terrible. I'm like, I would never. I have someone that I graduated college with that works there, and I'm just like, I cannot be that positive.
Oh, it's exhausting. Like I could barely do it when I was working at the Burger King in Houston. Like I would put on the front, I'd be like, "Hi, welcome to Burger King," and then like I would walk away. My coworker Kim, at one point, I would like be super happy. They would give me tips and whatnot by being positive.
Yeah.
and I would like walk away when the table was clear. And like I would go up smiling. I'd be like, "Here's your food." Then I turn around, face
Just
totally
miserable
white,
as fuck.
and then my coworker came. She was like, "You are fake as hell. You are fake as hell." I was like, "What are you talking about? You gotta be a little bit more enthused." I was like, "That's not you." I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I mean, but
No,
I mean, I'm getting these tips though."
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to be really nice.
Yeah, and it's a Walgreens. It was a Walgreens right next to it. So I, like every time with those tips, I'd be like, "Cool, I'm gonna go get some candy. I'll be right back."
There you go. Bet. See, I work at the liquor store, and I'm like, at this point, I'm literally just like, I don't even like say hi. I'm just kind of like, I just ring their shit out and just be like, tell them their price and get the fuck out of my face.
Yeah, there's a big difference, especially like regionally, but mostly just different kinds of stores. You can't like expect somebody at the corner store to treat you the same as you would going to a Chick-fil-A.
Right.
Like if you that's why I like Waffle House so much, because like they aren't there to make you feel like amazing, all pampered up or whatever, but the food is gonna hit as long as you treat them right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like I feel like that's how it normally goes. Like I'm normally like as a customer, I'm very nice, but like when I'm working in customer service, I want to kill myself.
I just don't think people understand that it's a one-way sort of situation. And like it's very exhausting when you try and put yourself out there, especially when you're not feeling it. And I've sapped so much of myself dry.
Yeah,
all in pursuit of some little extra pocket change.
Yeah, I like going to fast food. I always feel bad if they like fuck my shit up because I'm like, they don't want to do this. Like, no one wants to work at McDonald's the rest of their life. Yeah. So if they fuck up, I will literally just go inside and be like, I didn't get this, and they would rush to get it for me. I'm like, you don't have to do that. Like, I get it. Like, I don't want to. Yeah. I wouldn't want to do this shit either. So. Fuck that. Now I want to ask one more question before we get into the music and the writing and all that shit. Alaska. Never met anyone that moved and lived in Alaska in my life. You were the first person I know. Talk about living there, because I have literally zero clue. Most people think Alaska and think, oh, snow, and that's about fucking.
Yeah. I told people in Florida when I had learned the news that I was moving there, they were like, "Oh, you going with the polar bears and the igloos and the." And I was like, I doubt it's like that, but like when you hear it so much, you get a little bit scared. So I was just like, oh shit, like I guess I gotta go chill with the polar bears and whatnot. But no, it's where I was at. It was by the coast, so it wasn't like the snow was there and it was present, but it could have been much worse considering the setting. Like I could have been deep into a different area where it was, negative degrees all the time, and the snow would be much more. But I was in Homer, Alaska. It was a very small town. The only fast food places were McDonald's and Subway, which were both crappy.
Ugh. Damn. That's fuck.
Yeah, considering like my friend group, I get this will take me back, I guess, to even when I was a kid. I grew up totally different than a lot of the kids. I watched, like, everybody watched SpongeBob, but like when I was finished with SpongeBob, Blue's Clues or whatever, I throw on 106 & Park.
Yep.
And that, and it's much different from like, I don't know, like, the Kyles and the Josephs that are, the white kids that are watching like Spider-Man and whatnot. I didn't grow up watching any of the superhero stuff, so I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but do you want to talk about 50 Cent? Which they did not. No. And yeah, so I dressed different, I talked about different stuff, and a lot of mostly white kids, they didn't really get me. I think I was more acquaintances with them just because of sports.
Right.
And ever since then, I had mostly, like, I didn't hang around a lot of white kids just because, like, they didn't understand me. So I was just like, okay, like, I'm gonna hang out with you. And I'm gonna hang out with some other people, and other people embraced me when, certain white kids didn't. And that extended all the way to Alaska. A majority of my friends heading into it were Black, Puerto Rican kids. And when I moved to Alaska, it's all white. There was like 2, 3, maybe 4 Black kids outside of my stepbrother. Jesus. And then there was like a few native descendants, but like it was all mostly white, and I was so uncomfortable for the first year because I was like, I don't like, what am I going to talk to these people about? Like, what am I gonna talk to these people about? How am I going to convey this obvious regional disconnect from where I was at to this very behind? Like, people felt behind on everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird. Kids in Florida, like they would smoke weed, they would go to parties. Kids there, they would go to parties, but like I would see them willingly smoke cigarettes, and that was always like the wildest thing to me, because I was like, wait, you're smoking cigarettes instead of smoking the legal weed that you have here, and that tripped me out. But I mean, if they smoke cigarettes, I mean, like whatever. But it like initially, I was like, wait, you guys are like doing this just casually? Like the weed is right there.
Yeah. it's so much better. I don't understand why you are smoking cigarettes right now.
It tripped me out. And like, as far as music, people didn't understand. Like, even my second year, I was paid money to do their DJ or whatever, which was really just me putting together a Spotify playlist. The dean or whatever, they shut it down a bunch of times because I had to find the most wholesome content possible. So I put together as much stuff as I could that my friends were listening to and that I would listen to. And I got word back the day after, because I didn't go to the dance because I wasn't interested in hanging with any of the people there.
Right.
So I got paid for it. But I talked to people and I asked how the music was. They were like, I don't really listen to any of that. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I played Drake on there. You don't listen to Drake? And they were like, yeah, I listen to Drake. And, they mentioned like the obvious, but I was like, so you're telling me you've never heard Passion Fruit? And I guess not. But like, even like the obvious pop songs, like some of them just weren't getting down to it. And I was just like, okay. It's a big disconnect, and that took me a while to get used to it. But you meet certain people and you get used to the area. My senior year, my second year there was so much easier than my first. And I mean, it's different, but there were the benefits. It was much more closed off, so you didn't have to live in the moment all the time. You could just live very local. And I got to do radio again. I mentioned earlier I fell in love there. It was all new, and I appreciated it for its very homely environment, even though it was totally different. I had told a friend of mine, I was like, listen, if I could have brought y'all to the school, it would have been so much easier for me.
Oh yeah,
because then I wouldn't have had to interact with a lot of the kids that I, obviously didn't click with. But me being the person that I am, I had found my way to, to click and to mesh with certain people, whether we were different or not. People appreciated me because I was the way that I was, or they didn't. And I got funny stories as to the people who didn't. But the people who rocked with me, they rocked with me.
Yeah. And I've heard some of those funny stories, and they're fucking hysterical. But, the thing is like, I kind of had the same thing where like I had friends that don't listen to hip hop like I do. Like I ask them about, like, if I were to ask them today about Draco the Ruler, they'd be like, who the fuck is that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just no conversation there to be had. Or like, even if I was to be like Young Dolph, they'd be like, I don't know who that is either.
Oh yeah, no.
So,
It's
But
hard
like,
to it's hard to grade those moments in time, how big certain things are when you don't live in areas in which they're big. Like I could and it goes the same vice versa. Like I just listened to that driver's license song, which is #1 on Billboard. There's
yes,
nobody that I talk to that would like actively listen to that. So
no,
it's the different bubbles that you exist in where something could be big here and it couldn't be big here.
yeah.
But as far as like rap and the stars that come from it, it's really hard to gauge those moments when you don't live in places where they don't immediately absorb them.
Right. Well, that was what I was about to say though. I was on Twitter real early because that was really my only place where I could just kind of get my points off or like whatever. Like even if like no one responded, it was just like just say it and just put it out there. But
Yeah.
didn't go on Twitter until mad late, right? You weren't until like
Yeah, I had used my old account 2013. I didn't really start going on the internet until about 2012 just because I was poor and I didn't have the access.
okay.
And yeah, so I had used Twitter in like 2013, but I had just seen like different celebrities that I saw. And I was like, wait, you can just add these people right on. 13-year-old me was like ecstatic. I was like, cool, I get to talk to these people. But yeah, but you eventually learn like, oh yeah, no, that's counterproductive. It doesn't work. So I didn't use it for a while, and I didn't use Twitter for a while. I just existed in those spaces with friends. Like you get to learn those moments very locally. I wrote about it a few weeks ago where like people like Lil Snoop, people like Rich Homie Quan are so massive, like in Florida at that time. You got to grade those moments accordingly. And I didn't get to live on the internet. So you just get to see those things outside of forums, outside of Twitter. The most I would be on Vine when that was a thing, but like I was 15,
Right.
and I would be on Kick. Or I had used Instagram pretty late too, if I remember correctly, because I just wasn't interested in it.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't really like taking pictures of myself anyway. Why would I use Instagram?
Yeah, no, neither do I. I think I took a selfie once in my entire life, maybe twice.
Yeah, I mean, I just used it just as a means to like garner interaction. I think those like to be honest and them rate posts or whatever did a lot for them 15, 16-year olds because you got to I mean for me it was bigger because you got to interact with people. But if you were like really in your hoe bag, you could really use those
Oh my
to
god.
your benefit.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh, the to be honest rate days for the high schoolers were so grimy. It was legit sick.
Just
And
legit disgusting. Oh god, it was the grossest shit. Yeah, like I'll get like memories of that shit like when I'm on Facebook and I'm like, ew, why the fuck did I use this?
I mean, it's like, and that's just Facebook. Like, you can eventually take that thing to Kick, and for the people that use Kick, it goes down on Kick. And Kick was a disgusting app. It was filthy, and like kids our age had no business like acting the way that we did, but we just had the freedom to do so. And I wasn't using Twitter like that, so it was Kick, it was Instagram, and it was like a little bit of Vine. But again, it was all pretty localized. So you got to see those moments, Lil Snoop pop off. I got to see Migos happen right in front of me. I got to see Rich Homie Quan happen right in front of me. I got to see Young Thug happen right in front of me. I got to see all the stars that are the way that they are now. I
Yeah.
got to see them blossom at their early peak just in front of me. Migos, Thug, Chief Keef, it was all amazing. Like, and I could go on for ages how Versace was a moment, how Hannah Montana was like one of the biggest songs for within my friend group. How Chief Keef was like this mind-blowing figure, how people didn't immediately take to Young Thug immediately. Like people liked his music, but people thought he was a little too weird. Rich Homie Quan was like the straight guy. He was the straight man in the duo's partnership. One was a bit more I mean, people obviously do like the Andre 3000, the big boy comparison, but that's the obvious one for a reason. One's a bit more eclectic, one's a bit more out there in terms of like aesthetics, and one's a bit more like straightforward. But yeah, people like Rich Homie Quan a lot more. Type of Way was huge. People love those first two mixtapes. The one with, I'm forgetting the name of them, but one of them had Man on the Year. Actually, I can check real quick. Rich Homie Quan. Yeah, the I Promise I Will Never Stop Going In. The one with Man of the Year on it, and then Still Going In with Investment on it. Those were two huge mixtapes. And then you got to see Lil Snoop. He popped off. Lil Durk. Like people were judging like, oh, he's having his moment in 2020 because he had the Drake feature, but he was big back in 2013. People love This Ain't What You Want, or the song with Jeremiah. And even if that whole album didn't click with people were right back on top of it with the 300 Days, 300 Nights mixtape. Anyway, I got a little bit off your point, but like it was much harder to grade those moments in Alaska because if you're not on the internet like that, it's very local and you can't really judge it culturally if the culture isn't firmly rooted there. I mean, it's literally off the map. It's a part of the United States, but it's like separated. Same thing with Hawaii. Like people will probably have a different connection just because, the way that they absorb music is different.
Absolutely. Go ahead. I cut you off.
Oh no. It's just different from like if you lived in Florida. I got to watch like that whole SoundCloud wave pop off right in front of me.
Yeah.
That the XXXTentacion, the Ski Mask, people were really into Lil Peep was freaking huge. I can't even I can't understate that how big he was in that area. Mm-hmm. But yeah, people in Florida, people adored that SoundCloud age just because a lot of them came from Florida, that same little area from Broward County.
Right.
People fell in love with it. And, it's different. So when I eventually got to Twitter, I got to see how people absorb these moments, whether it was totally genuine or not. I was pretty new to it. So my exposure to a lot of the people that I know now, it wasn't there. And how those circles listen to music, what those moments were. But yeah, I eventually got to it on Twitter and I got to just see how I absorb music in comparison to the others, how I absorb things differently, and how to grade moments on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same way here where it was like, I mean, I got to see like the East Coast shit kind of, but like not because you were from the South and the South was popping off at that point for music. So I wasn't like a Young Thug like fan at that point. Like I like really could care less about like the South, like when I was like much younger, because no one from the South was really like popping here. Like it was like a couple tracks here and there, but that was about it. But
you really had to like transcend the region. Yeah. But like as far as like some people wouldn't immediately get Lil Snoop, but like or some people might have not immediately got someone like gosh, I was just talking about this Young Pappy. He was freaking huge in Chicago.
Yeah.
But his influence was big enough to translate outside of it where Tay-K was gonna name drop him in a song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's different unless you have one of those songs that transcends that region. Rich Homie Quan was able to do it when he hopped on the YG song. Young Thug was able to do it when Lifestyle became a moment. And those things had to exist outside of the region. I only talk about regionalism so much just because I grew up with it and I saw its impact and how other people absorbed it. Right.
Yeah, see, like here it was like in Scranton, it was Wiz Khalifa, it was Meek Mill, it was Mac Miller. For some reason, Chevy Woods was big here. I was never really a big Chevy Woods guy, but I mean, they
That's
have
a
to lose
name.
somebody.
It's been a minute since I heard of Chevy Woods.
Chevy Woods. He's basically just Wiz Khalifa's blunt roller at this point, but he used to be popping back in the day. Like he was like everyone's favorite, and I was like, he's cool. I mean, like I could listen to him, but like that's it. And then New York artists, ASAP Rocky, Joey Badass. I mean, the whole ASAP movement. Ferg was huge in my school, but like the thing is, like my grade was real weird. Like it was like so like the grade above me listened to hip hop and like only hip hop, and I've learned like I found out currency through people like my boys Diego and Franco. Like they put me on like Lupe, Fiasco, and like Chicago artists and stuff. And the grade below me, they put me on to like Lil Wayne. Not put me on. I mean, I found out Lil Wayne myself, but like the descendants of Lil Wayne that came after him. But my grade was listening to like screamo and like classic rock.
Yeah.
So I was literally the only one that would like listen to hip hop. That was it. Like everyone was those. By the way, those concerts are fucking garbage. I never wanted to go to another screamo concert in my life. Quick story: I went to one. It was at some shit setup. It's called Rigby's. It's literal garbage. It's not even like a thing anymore. But the first like 5 minutes, my ears are bleeding. I'm like, I need to go outside. I can't fucking stand this shit. I walk outside. This guy is puking up blood. I'm like, I call my mom, and I normally stick shit out. I call my mom. I'm like, Mom, pick me the fuck up. I'm not doing this right now. This is not happening. And Mom's like, you're staying there because I'm not picking you up right now. Like I'm doing something. So I sat in the parking lot for like a good 2 hours waiting. I actually went back in one more time because my friend texted me like, where are you? I'm like, dude, I'm outside. Like I'm not doing this. He's like, all right, well, this band's a little, I think it was like Sleeping with Sirens or some stupid shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, fine. I'll give it one more shot. So I go in, they play like a softer song. I'm like, all right, cool. I can deal with this. I mean, like it's not good, but at least I can like, I don't have to feel the urge to want to hang myself. And then they just started going in on one song, and I immediately walked back out. I'm like, dude, this is not something I want to do.
That's hilarious. You reacted like how one of those kids who got left behind, like when you get picked up from school or whatever, and like you're like, did my mom forget about me? And then you call on the school phone. You're like, Mom, can you come pick me up?
That's dead ass what I did, because I was like,
that's hilarious,
dude. I normally like if I'm in like an uncomfortable situation, I'll just like deal with it. But like that was like, I'm like, I could be home, I could be in bed, I can literally be doing anything else. I'd rather do homework than this shit. What is this? Because like they wanted like my friend, because like I was friends with people that liked that shit, and I was trying to like, classically fit in, and it was just not gonna happen. I was like, I'm like, I'll hang out with you guys, but like, I'm not listening to this bullshit anymore at all.
Yeah.
Now,
I could never front like that, because I would just be so blunt about it. I'd listen to some song on the radio and I'd be like, that is a bunch of nonsense. How are you listening to it? But like again, back to that point, with growing with music, I think Spotify and YouTube. I didn't really start getting on the internet till about late 2011, early 2012.
Right.
And people were like, oh, social media, people want to talk to one another. The music nerd that I was just looking to find ways to get free music. So I went on YouTube, and Spotify was like a safe haven, because I could listen to stuff that wasn't new to me that was new to me through regional areas. Like I could listen to a Young Buck album, the one that I would listen to straight out of Cashville when I was like super young. I would listen to that, and they'd be like, oh, you listen to Young Buck, you can listen to this. You listen to 50 Cent, you can listen to this. And I would go deep on that wormhole. I would find out Illmatic from there, Mad Villainy from there, stuff that my dad would never play. Like my dad was very Southern hip hop, and like a few exceptions of New York rappers. Like he was big on 50. He loved Wu-Tang, but like he grew up in that time where you picked sides in the Biggie and Tupac thing, and he was always Tupac. He was like, Biggie didn't make music I like that. And he was like, I don't listen to Jay-Z like that, but his talent's obvious. So he like names him like out of default. but like he listens to like 8 Ball and MJG. What's funny, he's like, he didn't even like, even with like Southern artists, he wasn't listening to Outkast like that outside of the first album. So
I know your dad, some of your dad's favorite artists, and I could see Outkast not being one of them.
Yeah, like I listed it out. He loves Future, Tupac, T.I., Jeezy, Gucci, 8 Ball, and MJG. Very Tupac. Like these are very street. Like he lived a certain life, and those were the artists that made the music that reflected how he lived. Right. And as a result, I would listen to music that he had, and I would always, from the backseat, be like, replay that one. And for some reason, I would be like, oh, yeah, Many Men by 50 Cent, super hard at 4 years old. No, they're like, Let Me In by Young Buck. Like, I had no business. But
yeah,
with Spotify, I got to live through the stuff that I didn't listen to. So, like a Nas, he wasn't playing no Nas. But, I mean, I could listen to Illmatic, and I could get that feel for how New York sounds in the imagination, and he brought that perfectly. But yeah, Spotify was super important, and I got to live that with my friends because we're all poor. We're not paying for music. We don't have money to go out and buy CDs, and we weren't going to bother our parents for it. I mean, some of us might have, but like, again, we didn't have money. Our parents had to buy stuff. So we would just scour the internet, and that's how Spotify was so important for so many of us.
Yeah, YouTube and Spotify saved my ass for a lot of listening to music because I gave up the buying CD shit very young. It's like, fuck this shit. Like, I can't. Yeah. Like, I bought 4 CDs, and I was like, bro, this is a lot of money. And I don't have, I can't bring this anywhere other because, like, I want to, like, go. I used to walk around all the time. I can't go and walk around anywhere. Thank God for like the YouTube converter that I can put on my iPod. That shit was a lifesaver. I had albums on that shit. Even though I didn't have any games, it was literally all music. So like CDs I gave up on real early. Even though I still kind of want to. Eventually, when I started actually making money in some shit, I want to start making like a music collection type thing with either CDs or vinyls. But at that time, it was like I bought Mac Miller's Blue Slide Park, Wiz Khalifa's Rolling Papers. I think it was Lil Wayne's Carter 3. And then my mom randomly bought a Kanye album, Late Registration. That was random because she doesn't like hip hop. I think she literally bought it just to listen to Gold Digger and then turn it off. But so that was literally all it was used for. And then I think I bought an Eminem record, honestly. I think it honestly might have been Recovery.
Ooh. No, not okay. It's not okay. I started doing. I had big CD collections, and I had a Zune really early. I had an iPod Touch. My Zune though had like a whole bunch of mixtape stuff,
right,
on top of the CDs. So like I would have Wayne and Joel Santana's Black Republicans. And Bad Side, which was so crazy to me as a kid. Yeah. I would find these things out and I'd be like, it's not on Spotify, and then I'd bang my hand on the table. Because these are all like little treasured little nuggets that you find out. But with CDs, again, you couldn't really afford it. Like I couldn't go to the store. There wasn't any real CD stores like the FYE. I think that's what it. I think that's
FYE.
The FYE that didn't come to the mall until much later. So your CDs would be like at the Walmart, and I'm not buying CDs at the Walmart because they got the Alanis Morissette's greatest hits collection, and I wasn't listening to that at that age.
Yeah, no, I mean I don't think they had anything at Walmart that I wanted. FYE doesn't even sell CDs anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't. I think they shut down the FYE I was at in Lakeland. I went earlier last year in the summer. Well, not in the summer because but the last time that I was there and I was able to go to the mall, there were CDs there and they were like selling everything, and like they were going out of business. 70% sale and everything. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna pick this and this, and I got the Big Crit, Forever is a Mighty Long Time album, 808s and Heartbreaks, Swimming, and College Dropout, and Liquid Swords by Jizza.
Jesus, that's a solid.
Yeah, I mean it's all cheap, and I had made my little fast food money, and wasn't spending on anything but food and music anyway.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I got my aunt got me like a Spotify gift card, and I'm like, don't have to pay for Spotify for 6 months.
Clutch.
So clutch. I was thinking, I was like, maybe I'll buy Apple Music for like 6 months just to see, and then maybe I'll switch out when Spotify's done. But I've yet to act on that. Now, one more thing before we go into the music, because you apparently do not like California much at all.
No, I just don't think it's for me. I think
you're a Southern boy by heart.
I'm Southern as even that. Like, I love Seattle because it could be sunny and it could be rainy, but I'm mostly like a Southern kid at heart. California, I don't think that the pandemic has helped at all in me giving it the most fair assessment, but like, it's draining out here. It's I have always loved cloudy days, and I've learned to embrace the grayness. Here it's always sunny, and like, I hate that it's always sunny when I'm not in a good mood, because
fuck you up.
Yeah, it's the heat, but like, it's bright, and like, it's supposed to be like almost like a paradise, and I'm just like, this is the worst. This day is the worst. You got a lot of nerve to be shining this bright ass sun in my face on this horrible day. It's awfully ironic. Like, I could be so depressed, I would be so in my head, and then I'd walk outside and be like, oh my God, this sun won't go away.
Yeah. See, I need seasons. Like, I don't think I could ever leave the East Coast to live somewhere else. Like someone's like, they wanted, like, my cousin wants to move to Florida. I'm like, I don't get that at all.
It's a bit crazy there, but at least there's like seasons for what it's worth. Here, it's like, it's weird where I'm at in San Pedro. Like, as far as temperature, there's a change between the seasons, but like, the sun's always there. Yeah, there will be a cloud there, the cloudy days, and like, the grayness will come like once every 2 weeks. Like, I remember once I was going to the DMV. I had to get my license or whatever. Or no, I was doing the test for it, the online test. Right. And it was gray as hell outside. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. And then I figure out, like, it's just smoky outside because of the fires. And I was like, that's just awful. Yeah. This place literally had to set on fire for me to get a set of gray to it. I was like, that's awful. And like, because I couldn't even be happy about it, because I was like, this place is literally on fire. But now is the only time that I could feel a sense of a cloudy day. It's awful.
This place needs to be on fire, son, for me to feel anything other than sun. I hate it.
Yeah, like, I don't know. A few weeks ago, it was raining. I was like, oh my God, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, there's rain, and then it would be hail, and I was like, cool, I'm staying in the house anyway. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Well, see, today, I don't think I've seen sun at all, because it's January in the East Coast. So sun doesn't even exist in January. Yeah. That's not even a thing.
And see, I know all the different extremes of climate. Like, in Alaska, the winter, there would be like maybe 3 hours of like real light outside. It'd be like 3-4 hours of legit light. And even then, it would be like gray. And you would need to take like vitamin D supplements to feel somewhat better. And then during the summer, it's sunny. Not sunny, but like, it's light outside all day.
Yeah.
With here, the sun is like exhausting. So the only time that I take walks is when it's like, it's gonna be sunset in like an hour. So I'll be like, all right, cool. The sun is gonna eventually finish wreaking its havoc on my mental.
It's also, the thing is too, like, I need my winter fits, bro. Like, I can't rock shorts and a short sleeve. I'm fat. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to work out more. Like, I I can't just be having no shirt. I don't have abs. Like, you know what I mean? No one wants
Oh,
to see my body.
you're telling me I got all these black shirts and it's sunny all the damn time, so I'm sweating a little bit.
Yeah. Summer honestly is the word. I don't think I hate summer, but I'm like I'll go, like I like it for like the beach and like the 3 months of like, oh, okay, like it's not snowing out, but like
I get a mean ass sunburn, so I can never go. I don't really love the beach like that because I get a mean sunburn. And I mean, the summer's different. It's again, you go to different places, and these seasons are different wherever you go. Like I loved Houston because it was that perfect middle of everything that I needed. The sun, it would be humid, but I lived in Florida, and that's like the worst kind of humid. So like it was fine. And then the sun, it would like if it was out, it'd be super bright, but it was never like scolding, which is what I hear. It feels like it's mocking you for being sad. Like, oh yeah, you got a lot of nerve being sad. We're in sunny California. It never rains here. It's that yeah. When I heard Tony's It Never Rains in Southern California, I was like, this sounds amazing.
Yeah.
This is awesome. It never rains. You know, it's so happy. It's angelic. Yeah. It's paradise. And then I come out here, I was like, God damn, it's exhausting out here. It's like the more and more I realize it's more like it's closer to Mad Max than it is like It Never Rains in Southern California, where like it's just burning.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't. I think Southern California would be fun for a week.
Yes, exactly.
And
mind you, during that drive to Alaska, I was there for like 3 days, and I was like, "This is great." And now I'm here, and now I'm here every day, and I'm like, "This is the worst." And I'm stuck inside, so like I look at the sun, and it's just being outrageously annoying all day. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not going outside, but you're always going to be there. And even if I'm sad, you're always going to be there. So it's like, and it's not like, you know, oh, you're always going to be there. That's so sweet. You know, it's there for you when you're down. No, it's there for me when I'm down, and it's going to kick me while I'm down.
It's going to kick the shit out of you. It's going to jump you. It's going to jump you while you're down. It's going to.
Yeah. And it's been jumping me ever since I got here. Every time there's a gray day, I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Yesterday, it was a bit more gray, but it came with a bit more wind. But I was like, you know what? I'll take this annoying wind if it means that this sun isn't going to be there the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, you'll take anything you can get. Like even
I'll take it.
Even rain for me at that point, I would have taken rain, snow. Give me something. Give me something.
When it was raining a few weeks ago, it was like maybe for an hour, but I like stepped outside and I was like, I have never felt so relieved in my life.
Yeah.
And then I went back inside and I was like, oh, open up the windows. It's never been so good ever.
Yeah.
And then it's always so funny. I don't think my dad gets it. Like I would like sit in my room with the light off and he was like, bro, it's gonna affect your mood and da da da. I was like, no, that is affecting my mood.
Oh yeah.
This light is affecting my mood.
Mm-hmm.
No, turn it off. I'm cool.
Yeah.
So he was like, oh, you're gonna hurt your eyes. It's all dark in here. The computer screen. I was like, whatever. My eyes is always burning because I have light eyes anyway, and I go outside and it's literally going to set on fire.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. I don't even know how you do it.
I know some people love it here, and I know like a lot of my favorite writers, they embrace it out here. Cameron Hay, he loves it. Jeff Weiss, he's wrote about LA dozens of times, and I was like, oh yeah, he writes about its duality a lot more. But I mean, this isn't very dual right now. There's not much duality right now. Yeah, there's no duality right now.
Hasn't Jeff lived here his whole life?
I think so.
Okay, and that's why.
And so I was like, okay, so you've managed to, scold the sun back in all of its hot hatred.
Yeah, he's mastered that. He's already used to it. Cam, I'm shocked. I mean, Cam, I could see loving LA and all its.
It's different personalities. I honestly always joke. I was like, I'm probably just too depressed to be living out here. Too much depression to be living out here. You got a lot of nerve to be sad living out here all the time.
I think that's also a case of like I'm definitely gonna have my days, and that sun is gonna piss me the fuck off. Like, get away from me.
Yeah. My friend Meals, he was like, "Oh man, you got to get really used to that depression burnout." I was like, "Oh god," and I did not expect it being this.
That's strong.
Yeah.
Damn. All right, let's get into the writing now, because we've talked enough about where you've lived your entire life, or where you've lived in. So when did journalism become something you were interested in, writing in general, and then the music aspect? Because for me, I think journalism was the first thing I wanted to get into, writing about something, and then later figuring out what it was. Was it the opposite for you? You saw music first?
It was the opposite. I was in Alaska when I had found out that I always knew that I wanted to do something in music, just because that was like the only thing that I was good at. Like, school was too easy for me. I would getting an A or a B was fine, because I was just like, okay, I noticed the patterns in these things. I can knock the right answer if I'm paying enough attention. And so school was easy. That was a given. So that created the issue of like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, everybody goes to college. Everybody does that. Figure it out. But I was just like, yeah, after so long, college didn't even become like people were applying, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll get to it. When I was in Alaska, I'll get to it. Got the emails, certain schools were like, oh yeah, you should check out our school and da 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 da. And I was just like, oh yeah, I'll get to it. And then I never got to it. But I knew all that time that I was like, okay, I care about music. That's the one thing that I've always been good at, is just talking my shit about music. It's been what I've been good at since I was a kid. I knew how to talk about what I saw on 106 in Park, whether or not I like the Dream and Fabulous song, or whether I liked A-Rap Money or not. Like, these are aspects that I eventually mastered, and I was like, okay, I know how to talk to people about music, and I love music. So I started off, I did GarageBand first. That was the first thing I did, because I was like, oh cool, you can make beats on this thing just straight up. And I have since put them on private, but I had released them on SoundCloud. I will not let those things live on the internet. I have put them on private. But they were pretty amateur beats or whatever. And but I was like, oh, this is cool, producer, quote unquote. Yeah. And it's funny because one of my beats sounds eerily similar to the Middle Child beat by J. Cole.
Really?
The one that I got the most, it was like 300, 400 plays. And I was like, you changed a few tempos. This is the same beat. It's like, this is tight. All. And but then it wasn't tight, because I hate that beat.
Okay, so I mean, either way, J. Cole found it cool, and he's big, so whatever. Whether or not you like to do it, I mean, he's big as shit, and he was like, all right, I fuck with this, whatever.
It's like, it's the definition of like trap type beat on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. You put the hi-hats here, it goes super fast or whatever. I had the horns, and the only thing I was able to get was like the patterns. Like, you get this here at the start, and then you bring in this for the hook, and then you go back to the verse where you take away that thing that made it the hook.
Right.
And I figured that out, but then I was just like, I don't feel like doing it anymore. And ever since then, I've seen some YouTube videos use that beat in the background of like I saw just a couple of YouTube videos just using that beat in the background. So, and I was just like, well, I mean, I guess, man.
Yeah. Fuck it. Why not?
Yeah. It was whatever, but like, it was something that I wasn't sure I was fully going to get into. I just wasn't devoted enough, and I got frustrated with GarageBand, because I was like, I'm much more interested in these other sounds. I can't really do all that with these like select presets.
Yeah.
And so after that, I had started getting on Twitter, and I had started connecting with people, with certain artists, and they knew that I was good at talking my stuff about music, or whatever. And at one point, this guy wanted me to be like an A&R for his thing. He wanted me to manage him. And I was like, okay, I can give it a shot. He would send me his music. I do, this, and this. I get my feedback. But then I just had to tell him, like, listen, I don't have the accessibility to be a manager the way that you're going to want me to be. Yeah. He was like, oh, yeah. He was like, okay, we can hit these shows. We can do that. I was like, bro, I don't even got my car yet. Like, how I can't follow you. Like, I can't be the manager that you want me to be. Right. If I can't go out of my way, if I can't drive to the place that you want to go do your concert at. And I think that, I'm a little bit out of order, but I got there at some point. Yeah, after radio, I did that. But senior year of high school, I did radio. I did sports broadcasting first, just recapping and previewing the local sports stuff. Right. Which really just lets me know just how depressing the sports was there. Like, the football there was awful. And it makes sense why they wanted to recruit me so damn bad.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
If they had got like me and like if they got me, my friend AK, and a couple of acquaintances, like my guy Nick, he was on the basketball team, guy named TJ. There was one person out of Lakeland that ended up being recruited to Michigan. Ooh. So you take those people and you put them on that Alaska team, and you're running up the score 100-0. They were running the diamond formation out in Alaska. I was like, who runs the diamond? You guys would get torn to shreds. No one runs the diamond.
Ew. What?
They were running the diamonds, and it was a whole bunch of kids that I didn't really like anyway. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to play for this Alaska thing. But I had found radio to occupy my time, and I had started doing that, and then they allowed me to transition to music shows and still tack it on to my service hours, because that's what I was doing it for. It was supposed to service the community, and my sports thing was going to keep the people updated and whatever. But they were like, listen, it's fine. If you want to do a music show, you can do that. Mm-hmm. And I looked for the co-host. That's where I fell in love. But fast forward towards a little bit, I end up doing interviews out of it, because I was like, okay, I've got all the studio time. I've got, a show in advance. I start watching like Breakfast Club interviews, Hot 97 interviews. And I look at Charlemagne, I look at Ebro, and I'm like, I can do this. This is easy. I look at Peter Rosenberg, I was like, this is easy. And
and those are guys that aren't at this point particularly good at interviews anyway.
But like
I looked at them and I was like, shit, I can do what they're fucking doing. I mean, it's not hard at all. Like,
I had just seen it. I was like, listen, all you gotta do is talk to these people like they're people.
Yeah.
And like, I don't come into anything with an agenda anyway. I'm just like, listen, I want to ask you about this, and this. And I was like, okay, I'm watching these things. The best interview that I had come across was Big Boy, and that's just because he was able to tap into that. But at that certain point, I was like, oh man, Charlemagne's really good, because he was a good conversationalist above all else.
Charlemagne was good for a while. I don't really listen to him anymore. But
he's always been like meh. Like, I don't think his questions were great, but his ability to engage his interviewer were mostly good. Yeah. And Ebro, I don't know what Ebro does good. I don't.
Nothing.
Like, it sounds a little foul, but like, I always watched him and I was like, what is he good at?
Nothing. He's good at nothing.
And I was like, literally anybody could sit in that chair and ask those same questions. Like, it's like
growing a beard. That's it.
Yeah. And I was just like, okay. And he's not very good at assessing music from what I've seen in his tweets. And there was one interview, I think it was on Hot 97. Isaiah Rashad was on there. That's when I knew he wasn't a good interviewer, because I was like, he's not even paying attention. Really? And I was like, this is one of the, I was like, he's not even like, he's like on his phone scrolling through stuff like he's improvising. No, and I was like, oh my. And I was just like, oh my God, he's not paying attention. Peter Rosenberg is like half-ass paying attention. And, Laura Stiles, I mean, she was fine. She brings like a different dynamic. It's again similar to the Breakfast Club. You have three different voices, similar template. But I look at those things and I'm just like, okay, I can do that. And then, I do my first interview with a South Carolina rapper, producer, director, Mills Davis. He's my first interview, and he was also my first written interview as well.
Okay.
And then I did another interview with a South Carolina. He made clothes. He was a YouTuber. He was delving a little bit in acting, but he wasn't there yet.
Right.
I interviewed him as far as audio, and then I interviewed Anonymous out of Florida, who now has connections with Denzel Curry. He was on the 2K soundtrack. This was all after that. Yeah. Or no, this was all before that, rather. He was getting buzz. I found him out through a YouTube video. He was like talking with the Black Hokage at that point. He was a YouTuber, and I had just heard his voice. And then they played his music or whatever, and I was like, oh, this is really good. And then I think I was on Twitter, and I might have just reached out on a whim. If I had my old account, I'd still have the message, but I think I reached out to him. I was like, hey, I want to do it. I'd love to do an interview, da da da. And I reached out to his manager. I did the interview accordingly, and then I put the interview out on YouTube and as a part of the YouTube show. As a part of the YouTube and the radio show. Okay. And after that, I had moved away from Alaska. I didn't have the connection to the radio station anymore. So I was like, okay, I can't record and I can't, reach out to people the way I want. I ended up doing the manager A&R nonsense for a little bit, where I wasn't able to do what I wanted for a while. And really, I was working. I was just doing fast food. I was like, okay, I need to, make some money. I need to, I need to make some money. I need to get this, the car, the driver's license, all that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to work for a little bit. And then at some point I was reading Yo Phillips articles, Donna articles from DJ Booth. They now do the Audio Mac thing. Yeah, but at that point I was reading DJ Booth articles, and I was like, oh man, Yo Phillips is amazing.
Yep.
And Donna, like, amazing. I eventually got, like, Dylan was a little bit separated from that as far as like me getting into it, but I read his stuff and it was good. And then I would read Shay Serrano's The Rap Yearbook or whatever. Yeah. I read that and then I was like, I can do that. And it's funny. It's funny because my friend Harley, he like reacted to it like it was shade. I was like, it's not shade, man. It was legit genuine, but I could see I can see how all of this comes off as shade. But like, I look at these things and I was just like, yeah, I can do that. It's one thing that I'm good at is talking about music that I love and telling stories.
Yep.
And I could talk about that for ages. So I was like, okay, let me try this out. And I guess I can get into my negative experience initially writing. Screw it up, put him on blast because he shouldn't have did that to me anyway. I wanted to write, and I looked at this guy, top 5 rap website or whatever. Mm-hmm. I look at it, and I was just desperate for somewhere to write something. And I was like, okay, I need a platform of some sort.
Right.
So I reached out to him, and I was like, hey man, I would love to write for your website, da da da. And my first idea, honestly, I really think I should like redo how I go about doing that, because I think I can get so much more interesting details out of it. But one of the big stories in terms of how I listen to music, how important of a role it played for me was the Graduation versus Curtis, the Kanye 50 Cent sales feud.
Yes.
Which, manufactured however it will, it was still important. It was a big deal to me because 50 Cent at that point was my favorite rapper. He was the biggest rapper in the world to me. He was bulletproof. His first album, classic, Beg for Mercy, amazing. The Massacre, I mean, less than stellar, but like it was plenty of stuff that I liked from there at that point. He helped the game. He made me like the game off the documentary.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is really good, and this is all off the 50 Cent cosign. He made me listen to the Young Buck album off the 50 Cent cosign, the Lloyd Banks album. Those are great albums too. All because of that cosign. And then, you hear a story, I watched his documentary or the movie documentary-esque thing.
Yeah.
And mind you, the movie's not very good, but at that age I was like, whoa, like he's like Superman because he got shot in the face 9 times and then he goes on to be the biggest rap star in the world. So I'm like, oh my gosh, he's like, I didn't understand what Superman, but I was like, oh my gosh, he's like invincible.
Yeah.
And at that point, he was still coasting on that high and Kanye was getting bigger. I knew of Kanye. I had the College Dropout around. My first like real memorable experience with him, my granddad, he was listening to Touch the Sky with him and Lupe. And it's funny, my granddad, he had on the stereo of the Lincoln Navigator that he had. And it started booming and it goes, da, 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 da. And he was like, what you know about this? He was like, it was like, Granddad, I've heard this song. And he was like, no, not this song, the song that is using. And he didn't understand sampling, but like he knew that the song was derivative of the Curtis Mayfield song.
Right.
So he was like, what you know about this? I was like, Granddad, we know this. Me and my uncle, he was like, we know this. And he was like, nah, but you don't know about this. And that was big for me. And I would like the song accordingly. And Late Registration was good, but he wasn't 50 Cent. Like that wasn't the thing yet.
No,
and
not yet.
And then when we got to that battle, all the singles start coming out accordingly. We see I Get on 50 side, you see I Get Money, phenomenal single. But then you get Amusement Park, not very good. Gosh, I wish I had the notes on hand. But then there was AO Technology. That was the one where I was like, oh my God, what the hell is he doing? What the fuck is he doing?
Yeah.
I was like literally baffled. And at the same time, Kanye just releases hit after hit after hit after hit. And I was just like, he hasn't missed once.
Yeah.
He did Stronger, which was the big one. He did Good Life, which was the one that resonated with me the most and the one that felt bigger, even though Stronger was the big like pop crossover thing. But Good Life was the big one. Can't Tell Me Nothing. Flashing Lights. That one blew my, and I was like, he's whooping his ass right now. And then after the album, he released Homecoming as a single. I was like, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
But up to that album, I was just like, oh my God, like there's no way that even then I was like, all these songs are better, but there's no way 50 is gonna lose, right? So my dad buys both albums. We listened to 50 Cent's Curtis first because that was the one that I was most curious about. We love 50 Cent. We listened to Curtis and we had never been more deflated. I had never been more deflated in my life. I was like, this is awful. Yeah. This is terrible. There in hindsight, I think there's like 5 or 6 good songs and there's 19 songs on that.
I don't remember a single thing about that album. I'll be honest with you, fam. Nothing.
There was one of the songs that I remember on there. I can actually go now. I can list them off. But there was a song with Robin Thicke that I really liked because it was smooth. There was a song with Mary J. Blige that was great. I Get Money. And then there was a song with Akon that I thought was fine. But like then you would hear AO Technology and I was like, this is egregious.
Right.
This is awful. So then I was like, oh my gosh, okay, he let me down. And then we find out the numbers. What happens? Kanye beats 50, and it was like watching your favorite superhero get defeated by this other dude. And
Oh
you're
yeah.
just like, and it's just like, whoa! Like I didn't, if when you have the view that he's invincible all this time, you're just like, dude, wow, like he's actually down. And you look at this new guy, like, oh my gosh, now he's the coolest because he knocked off, this big superhero invincible figure. Like now he's the more invincible. And that story was important for me to tell after that 808s and Heartbreaks came out. And I didn't like it initially just because I didn't get it. I was still off the graduation high. But
Right.
but I wanted to tell that story, how important that was to me. And the foundation of me listening to that artist, how that changed. But really the premise of it all was, what if 50 Cent had won? Which is a good idea in premise. And I was still pretty novice. I'd still had the glaring flaws and all, but I think the idea was good.
Right. I would have.
And yeah, and I had submitted it to him, and I had everything. He was like, cool, I'm gonna edit this, I'll get back to you. He didn't get back to me. The Top 5 Rep website guy, he didn't get back to me for like 4 months.
Really?
Yeah, he told me he was gonna split it into 2 parts. So he didn't get back to me for a few months. I was just sitting there because I didn't know how long the edits were gonna take, and I knew that I knew that he was also doing like his own content. So I was like, okay, maybe it's just taking a while. And then the first part comes out. I'm ecstatic. I release it everywhere. I promote it everywhere. I pin it as my tweet for a while. And then, I DM him not so long after, like, okay, when are we going to get the second one?
Right.
And then he's just like, all right, we're going to, we start waiting for like all this promotion and all these numbers to come in, because he saw like the engagement with it was still going high. So he kept wanting to ride it out.
Okay.
And he was like, all right, then I'm going to edit the second one. It takes another like 3-4 months. So I released the first part, and then the follow-up doesn't come out for like months later.
Yeah, that's weird.
So I was just like, okay. At that point, I was like, come on, man, like you're playing with me.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was just like, all right, you just let me know when it's out. And it's out. I promoted it. But, when you have the second part, like people are going to want to read the second part about what happens if he beats him, which my big argument for that was, I think that he tries the same. I think 50's ego gets the best of him, and he tries the same nonsense with Lil Wayne, and he gets blown the hell out of the water.
Yeah. 100%.
And regardless, he gets caught up in the dust.
Caleb is dying on camera.
Yeah, so I think just the change in sound, like Drake was coming. Wayne was largely influential. The change in times would have got to 50 before anything else. With his with his sound, he knew the formula that worked. Like there was, the song for the streets, there was a song for the ladies, and some sort of cycle of that. That was his bread and butter for a while. He basically checked that from Ja Rule.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
My God.
But that happened, and I guess people came onto it. And whether it happened then or if it was going to happen in that theoretical Wayne matchup, he was eventually going to get lost because he didn't adjust accordingly.
Right.
Because he was so firmly rooted in what he knew worked for so long. It worked for Lloyd Banks. It worked for Buck. It worked for him. It worked for the game. Hell, it even got Tony Yayo to sell records. So I was like, who are you going to tell 50 Cent, who again got shot in his face 9 times? Who are you going to tell him, who came over all this adversity? How are you going to tell him that these things aren't going to work when he literally survived much worse? Yeah. And lo and behold, his rap career fizzled out. Now he's doing power. But at that point, I was deflated. And yeah, I had just went back to work because I was like, okay, I don't know how the writings, because I still wanted to write, but I just didn't know how to release it. I didn't know how to package it or anything.
Yeah.
So I had like little things, and I would put it on a Google Doc and I would share it. But like I didn't have like a real sharing things on Google Doc is only going to get you but so far.
Yeah, no, I've never really done that, but I can't imagine it's much of a,
there's no real engagement. It's like you're getting a very bare document. Its presentation isn't much of anything. There's no thumbnail or anything.
Right.
And for the longest time, I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I follow Richie at some point in between there, and I see him doing NC Views, and I was like, oh, that's super cool. He's got a little area. I didn't know anything about blogs or anything.
Right.
Because I wasn't on the internet so late, and I had only used it for Spotify and to talk with my friends. So I didn't really scour the internet for the different blogs that were happening during that blog era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Neither did I. I knew about like Complex, but I was like, that's a far fetched. Like I was like, maybe I can apply to write there. And then they were like, oh, you need this college degree, da 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 da. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll do the college thing or whatever.
Right.
Which, proven now that you don't need it. But
wish I knew that fucking beforehand.
Yeah. But like when I was looking at it, I was like, okay, they're asking for me to have the college degree, so I can't do that. He's doing NC Views, so how do I just release stuff on my own? So I hit him up. I was like, listen, I'd love to write for your thing or whatever. And I forget the first thing. It might have been the Kanye Jesus is King somewhat review. It was more just like I think the headline was, falling out of fandom. Like I would basically just falling out of fandom with Kanye after the Jesus King thing. And I wrote about the complicated relationship that I had with him at that point.
I remember that one.
And
yeah.
And I had I had released that to NC Views. That was, I think, the first one. And I had liked the reaction I got. I felt really gratified to have my stuff like actually out in a timely manner. I was expecting it to take forever, like it did the last time, when he comes back to me in like a few days.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, it finished that quick. And then I released that, but I still wasn't like, I was still a little bit discouraged from that first situation where it just took forever. I was like, I don't know if I want to do it. I still love it, but I'm not. I just have an area where I can talk my shit about it.
Right.
But that was like, I wasn't there yet. And then, I keep writing. I start making playlists in between, just getting my engagement as someone who loved music. I guess at that point I was like probably a bit more than like a hip hop Twitter person.
Yeah.
But I was like always sharing my thoughts on albums. I was doing threads. I was getting engagement on that end. I was doing playlists. I would do the occasional article.
Right.
But at that point I wasn't like there yet. And it wasn't until my 20th birthday, December 14th, 2019, where I started taking it seriously. And because I had released 2 things that day. I had released quite a few things. I wrote a Roddy Ricch thing. I released a playlist. I did that. Hell, I don't even think I took it that seriously then either. But I had started releasing more stuff. But then once I figured out that Medium was a thing, I was like, wait, you can just go on here and put your stuff and just put your writing in and just release it. I was like, oh, that's tight. And then I got to go do that. My first article on Medium was influenced by my guy Brigard. He was asking, like some engagement, like what's a perfect song or whatever. So I take that prompt and I was like, okay, what makes a perfect song? And that was my first thing December 31st, 2019. Ever since then, I just ran with it. I wrote a ton ever since. And yeah, my apologies for all the. It was I made it much longer than it needed to be, but
That's what a podcast is for, man. Talk your shit.
Yeah, I came from these areas, and then I didn't really start taking writing seriously until December 31st, because I was like, okay, I can just release this whenever the hell I want. And
Right.
I don't have to wait on people. So even if there were like some obvious edit concerns or whatever, I was just like, listen, I'm just gratified to have my stuff out.
Yeah.
I need to have my words out where I'm not like waiting all the time. The instant gratification of Medium allowed me to pursue this the way that I wanted to.
Medium is such a like monumental spot to write because the pitching gets fucking tiring after a while, and once you're not getting shit back, it's like, all right, I'm just gonna throw it on here. I'm gonna let the people that follow me decide if it's a good article or not. And more often than not, I mean, like way more often than not, it usually goes very well for me and you type of shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, for anyone who writes, or when you use Substack and you get the subscribe.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah. And
like, perfect.
Yeah, and I've seen like I didn't really start pitching until I wouldn't say like around the summer last year.
Same, yeah.
I was like, okay, maybe I should try giving me there. I still wanted to write for Complex. I wanted to write for Pitchfork, all these places I was reading DJ Booth, but I didn't know where to take it. So I was like, okay, whatever. I had figured out about Passion of the Weiss by then. And then at some point, I eventually pitched Jeff at that point. But I had pitched Vulture, the blues article, how the blues became hip hop.
Yeah.
And that one went viral on my old account. And I was just like, cool. I mean, I'm going to make people regret not taking the pitch that I had for them. And people are going to see.
That one definitely people regret because that one went crazy.
Yeah, and like people knew where I was getting from, and I knew the instant gratification from Medium allowed me to release things at a clip that I really wanted to. That the pandemic definitely enforced that, where I was like, okay, I have nothing to do but write. So I was just like, okay, cool. At the start of the year with Medium, I would release something almost every week. Yeah, every week or every other week. So I was just like, all right, I'm gonna just flood it on them.
Yeah.
I got the ideas, and the ideas flew to me instantly. And I was like, listen, the worst thing that's going to happen is that it's just a whatever. And at that point I was like discouraged if something didn't take off the way that it wanted to. Recently, I released something that I thought was fantastic, and it didn't take off the way I wanted to. But it's fine because I grew to be happy with the writing that I had. But at that point I was like, listen, I really want people to check out my work. But it's a lot of stuff that I threw out. So every other week it would just be new Medium articles all the time, new ideas, and and then I eventually got to pitching, and I figured it out from there. I was like, all right, I'm not gonna wait on people anymore. Like if the idea isn't gonna be there, I'll take it into my own hands, and they'll just they'll get a view for me anyway.
Yeah.
The way that I did the way that I came across Jeff, I got his email from somebody, but I had pitched him the NBA Street article that I did, which wasn't a great pitch or anything because I didn't know how to.
Right.
But he was like, I'll definitely pass on this one, but I have like seen you around because I did the mid-year thing. I did the mid-year albums.
Yes.
And he was like, I've seen what you've been doing around here. Please feel free to pitch me something new whenever you have some ideas. I would love for you to write for the site. Yeah. And from there I was thrilled. And that's when I knew like Medium allowed me to do everything that I wanted to do. So worst case, if a pitch doesn't go down or if I don't feel confident enough to pitch it, I can always just write it on my own volition and just let it take off. off of the strength of my work.
Right. Yeah, and that's like confidence building right there. Just being it, because like you were definitely posting every week, and it was just like it became a thing where I'm like, how the fuck does he have this many ideas? Like it's almost like pissing me off because I'm like, I was doing the album review shit at the time. Like I was dropping like an album review every week, and you were dropping like a new just something every week.
Yeah.
Whatever came to your head, and I'm like the album review thing is like it's impressive, but it's also like it's very easy to do. Kind of almost like you're kind of coming up with new ideas on just like different shit, like the whole blues thing. Then you did one about Drake. Then you had a whole series about the hits of the best and the worst hits of from I think it was like 2000 to now, right?
From 99 to now.
99 to now.
Yeah,
so,
because I wanted to cover every year that I had been alive. So late 1999, I kind of got that in on a technicality.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see how music grew every year that I was alive. So from 99, I wanted to observe how music changed, how we got there, how these certain trends enforce society as a large. And I didn't fully get into that like mold and how I wanted to convey it until like around 2005.
Right.
Like 2005, 2006. At some point, it stopped being just, I really just wanted to talk about the songs. Because I was like, okay, these are the songs that I like. These are songs that I don't like. And that was mostly it. But then I would write these blurbs and it would be something larger than that. I would take these angles and I would form them into something new. Why they work on a pure molecular level. I've never been super good at, describing like, oh, this 808s, these 808s hit like this, or these hi-hats are descripted in this way. The very music review, Anthony Fantano type of way, where I was like, listen, I'm not about to talk about no shittering hi-hats or nothing like that. It's very blanket. How do these things make me feel? And what is everything surrounding it? That's what's the more interesting thing to me. So I was like, okay. At some point in that series, I would go look at a song like Lollipop in the 2008 edition. And I was like, okay, this was a club song, but it's not a dance song. Like you can't really it doesn't have a tempo where you can dance to it. And yet it's in every club imaginable.
Which is just so weird to think about, considering obviously I wasn't able to go into a club. It's like, how the fuck you dance to Lollipop?
Yeah, but like I was able to tap into something that seemed a lot easier. I was just like, okay, this works because it feels like the club. Right. Like it's very slow and lumber. It's honestly genius the way that song is crafted, because it's 9 different hooks, or not. No, it's like 5 or 6 different. It's like 5 hooks spread out 9 different times.
Yeah.
For 5 minutes.
Yep.
Where the beat doesn't ever change. Like it might drop at some point into one of the hooks.
Right.
But like it's very slow. It's very lumbering. But it has the exact vibe of like a drunk person stumbling around in the club. It's very intoxicating. And it works on that pure feeling. Like let me have the quote, because I think I have it right here. It's very unsexy too. Like it doesn't work, but it has that exact vibe that I said the core idea of a nightclub. It had the core idea of a nightclub better than any before. The song lumbers around like a horny drunk who had too much to drink, but it works in that manner.
Yeah.
It's hopelessly intoxicating. Its catchiness keeps you replaying the song, just like the drunk repeatedly asking the bartender for another shot.
Yeah, I feel like that's 100% true. And I also feel like he wasn't even trying to go for like a club song vibe. I think he was just trying to make like a fun song, maybe. I don't know. I feel like a club song was like out of reach, and then it just became a club song. I don't know.
Yeah, it honestly sounds like if you put like a disco ball in a graveyard. Like it's very like Halloweeny. Like I said it's actually pretty brooding and borderline haunting, like a nightclub set in a cemetery on Halloween. Like it's very dark and disturbing, but it works on that pure level where it takes it's 3 different hooks and it's spread thin 9 times. So you hear some variation of a hook 9 times. There's a bridge, there's an intro, there's an outro, there's 4 verses. They interpolate Juvenile's Back That Ass Up, but they make it super slow.
Yeah.
It works on such a strange, bizarre level. And I was just like, okay, these are things that I want to cover, and if these pitches ain't gonna do it, then I'm gonna do it. Like I think I pitched this. I think I pitched the series to Jeff, and I don't think I came at the pitch very well. And again, I was still very new to it. I didn't know how to engage. Yeah, I didn't know how to pitch. So I was like, okay, well, I know the idea that I want to do, and if I'm not about to let this idea just float into purgatory, I'm gonna write it.
Right.
And eventually it got better and better and better as I got better. Like I got so much better the more and more I wrote.
Yeah, but to the pitching thing, I was fucking horrible at that shit.
Yeah.
When I pitched to Jeff, he was like, every time I like sent him an email, he's like, no, you gotta like give me the music. Like, you just tell me an artist. I'm like, yeah. And then I would tell him, he's like, well, you gotta explain the music. Like, I'm not just gonna fucking listen to this shit. I'm like, oh, well, he didn't say it exactly like that, but like, he was like, I'm not just gonna listen to this. Like, you gotta like explain it to me, like what kind of music.
Yeah, you gotta explain why a certain artist ticks. And again, I've never been able to describe the music well, but I know how an artist makes me feel.
Right. And I think if, not to cut you off, but like going to him first to pitch is probably the best thing you could do, because he's going to give you the best advice on how pitches work and like how to write and how to deal with an environment where you are going to get critiqued. Like, he's going to tell you this shit sucks. Like, go back to the lab and he'll give you helpful tips, but you're also like, you got to do this on your own type shit. And that was the biggest thing for me, was like, when I'm writing at certain places, especially on Medium, like I don't have anyone to read my stuff. I'm just like, I think this shit's fire. And then I put it out. There's someone there that's, a professional freelance.
They do this.
And is like, no, you got to do it like this. So like when you were working on the Jay Worthy interview for that, because one, that was a great interview.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like what was that process like, getting to, like your first time really dealing with like someone that's going to like critique you, really like, help you, sentence structure and all that shit?
It was a bit of an adjustment. I definitely ran across a big issue that I had really saw. My sentences sometimes drew a little long, but I really just needed to fall in love with the artist all over again. Yeah. When I was doing that intro, I was like, okay, I think it kind of hurts when we live in a time where like my friend Brandon Callender, he was great. He's gave me tons of advice.
Shout out to Brandon.
He told me, just like I think Jeff might have said it too, but he was like, why do you like this artist? Like if you were showing this artist to somebody, how would you pitch it to them? And I would just be like, I wouldn't. I would just like, I have the song on cue. I can just play it. And like, and like I would do that, but at the same time, like I also know what my friends like. Like I know what kind of music that my friend would gravitate to. So with my friend AK, I showed him London Drugs just on a whim because I was like, bro, you got to hear this. We were on FaceTime and I played another one off of the Affiliated album. I played it for him and his face immediately scrunches up and he starts banging his head a little bit. So I was like, oh yeah, he immediately likes it because I knew what he was going to like before he liked it. And even if he didn't like it, whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I've got tons of stuff in my library.
Yeah, you do. I know you do because you and EJ are the only two people I know that will literally send me music like nonstop. And I'm like, how the fuck did you find this person? Like, the one was like Ash Nico or something. She just came out with an album. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I've never even heard of this woman. But like then I remember that it was one of her songs was like kind of viral on TikTok. I forget the fucking name of it, but it's a very good song. And I'm like, he just sends me her, and I'm like, dude, what the like? Who is this? Like, he was telling me about like because like I wasn't really in the pop shit, and he was telling me about Rena and Charlie, and so were you. You made me listen to Yes Chumar. Literally, as I was like half asleep, he's like, "You're gonna give me a live album review of this." I'm like, "All right, fine." I
Yeah,
listen.
no, it's still, it shocked me just how much that album stuck with me that whole year. I was like, okay, still got plenty of time in the year. I don't know if Isaiah Rashad's gonna drop. I had immediately come to the like conclusion, like I was like, okay, if Isaiah Rashad drops, he's immediately gonna take the #1 spot just because of how much I like his music.
Right? Yeah, 100%.
And I was preparing myself for that, and it never happened. But that album was always there. The two more album, The Heaven to a Tortured Mind.
Oh
It
yeah,
was still there, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
yeah. I don't think. I mean, for me, Alfredo, I don't. It was pretty close, but I didn't think anyone was actually going to overtake that until I heard Rena's, and I'm like, ooh, this is real close.
Yeah,
Rena
yeah,
and Spillage Village were real close.
yeah, yeah.
Even as a Mac fan, I was like Alfredo is considerably better for me by like not considerably. I would say it's better. Like it's
Yeah.
especially for the listenability aspect. Oh God, I can't talk aspect because it's still kind of tough to listen to Mac at this very point in time, because of his death and everything. But like Freddie's also one of my favorite rappers too, and you combine that with one of my favorite producers, it's going to be an album I thoroughly enjoy, and it's going to end up being my favorite. But
Yeah.
then Rena came, and I'm like, oh shit, this girl is killing it right now. God damn. All right.
I did get off of your point though with the Jay Worthy interview.
Yes. Jay Worthy.
I had just when I was going through it, I had like mentally, there wasn't like a set date to do any of it, but for some reason I had like set that expectation on me because I didn't want to keep people waiting because I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I would set these deadlines and it would affect the way that the work ended out, that the work ended up coming out. So I was like, okay, I would send it, be like, oh yeah, this is good, this works, and then you tear it to shreds. And at one point he talked to me a certain way, and I was just like, listen, I don't even, like, you're not my pops, bro. Like you're not gonna talk to me any sort of way. And I like legit for like 3 days I was just steaming. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna finish the damn interview. He's talking to me like he's anybody. I don't know you like that.
Right.
And like I come from a certain area, and like he just coming at me sideways. So like you need to relax, sir. Like I don't know you like that. And if you came at me sideways at a different time in my life, I would have felt away, and I would have said some things I shouldn't have said.
Yeah.
But like again, I try to be a bit more passive. And yeah, but with each edit, I slowly began to internalize them, and my concepts got better. So like the stuff that I would release on Medium, my concepts were stronger.
Right.
My details would get better. The stuff that I released at the top of this year are two of my best pieces of work, just because of how I formed those ideas and how I wanted to look at them as pure concepts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You could tell the growth and the way you're going at shit is much better after that Jay Worthy interview, because that for me was like something where I was like, I feel like I got better after this, and I know you did too. Like that shit was, it's definitely a great learning experience for everybody.
Yeah. And it wasn't even totally after that. Like I was, I think I did the blues article during that writing session. So I would like, after edit, I would internalize these things and I would work on something else, and my ideas would be freaking awesome. Like I think the Lollipop blurb was around that time too. and like there was a night and day difference between the stuff that I was working on in like August and September when I started off with it, and the stuff that I was doing back in like April, May. It was different.
Absolutely.
It was stronger ideas. The way that I wanted to form things were better, and now I've just been able to expand upon ideas. And there were some ideas that were really good, but now that I've like viewed them from different lenses, I have allowed myself to take time to really think about it without just immediately diving into it with the raw ideas. Like those last 2 articles that I did this year, those took about a week or two, and like I could have done it all in one sitting, probably, but I wanted to take more time just so I can like space it out, and I really wanted to be particularly attentive to how I wanted to transition those ideas into something else.
Yeah.
And how I would eventually bring it all together. Like the one about Lil Snoop, Lil Durk, that one, I split it after the Lil Durk, the Chicago one. And I was like, all right, I want to talk about Lil Snoop. I finished the rest of it that day, and then I released it the day after. And my friend Josh, Svets, I think is how his last name is pronounced. But he was like, "Did you have anybody edit this?" And I was like, "Nah, bro. I mean, I looked over it. Like I read over it a couple. I was like, I read over it a couple times to make sure there wasn't anything glaringly bad or anything." And but I told him, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if I missed something, because I just tend to put these things out whether or not like I may miss something, but whatever. Like it's gonna live and die on how the rest of it looks anyway. But he told me, he was like, I can tell you've internalized a lot of those edits, because there's not like this reads very well.
Right. Yeah, and you definitely did. And that's the thing, is like it's not just writing for him and like kind of like learning a thing. It's like really like remembering that whole process of like what you were going through when you were writing and when he was giving you the edits back. Like, that shit will stick in my mind every time I write something now. Like, not like good enough just won't be good enough for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something that like I'll continually remember every time I'm writing some shit, which I haven't written anything, since the since the end of the year. But eventually when I get to it, I'll actually remember. The only thing that the top 50 albums thing, I really shouldn't have written a blurb for each fucking album. That was nuts. I'm never doing that again. That was the worst.
Trust me, I did something crazy like that back in last February. I ranked almost every Kanye song.
Yes,
and it was about 100 songs, and I was just like, okay. I mean, I've got thoughts on all these songs, and I mean, it immediately dated itself, because right after I was like, okay, I want to change this ranking and this ranking and this ranking. Right now, I would change where a song like RoboCop would stand.
Right.
Like I think a lot of 808 stuff would move forward a little bit. I think some stuff would have to sit back a little bit.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't know how you did that shit at all. That would have made
it was fun to me though, because like I always loved Kanye, but I would look at these rankings and I was like, Good Morning and Champion are way better than Stronger. Come on now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like it's like some songs I wouldn't play nearly as much. Like I don't know if I would play there was one in particular. I had Street Lights at 6 when I should have had Paranoid way higher, and I probably would have had it above it.
Right.
Or like, I don't listen to Diamonds from Sierra Leone nearly as much as like Addiction, which I think is the best song on Late Registration.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's I rated Touch the Sky above it, which is close, but I think that song is probably the most daring out of all of it. I think I think it has like a really, really good groove, but it's kind of dark a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think his singing isn't nearly as bad as it could have been. Like he experiments with singing a lot, and that one he made it sound like really seamless.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look back at that and see, because I feel like I agreed with most of it, but that's neither here nor there. Now, to end this podcast, I want to ask, what are your next steps for 2021? Like, what are the goals that you set out for yourself, if you have any? Are you just going to continue to write and just improve in that aspect? Like, because I feel like the journalism game doesn't really have much, like, you don't really have goals set out. It's just kind of like whatever comes to you. But like, do you have something in mind, just like even one thing where you're like, I definitely want to try to get this going for this year?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like there's a bucket list that I have for this writing stuff. I want to write for Vibe magazine. That was one of the first magazines that I loved when I was a kid. I would go to the Walmart and I would pick up a Vibe magazine. I want to write for Pitchfork at some point. I want to write for all the places that I wanted to write for when I was coming into it, just so that I could prove to myself, like, okay, like I'm in this circle.
Yeah,
like
that's also my goal. Pitchfork.
Yeah, like I see my friend, like I think Richie, and I was like, okay, like I'm in their circle already.
Yeah.
I think I'm in there. I think I'm comparable. Like before I did the interview around the summer last year, I knew that I was like good, but I really didn't want to hold myself higher than the people that I admired.
Right.
I looked at people like Mano, like Brandon, like Richie, like Armand, like you even. I would look at y'all and I'd just be like, yeah, I'm not better than, like, I wouldn't immediately put myself in that conversation. I would because I was like, I'm inspired by them, but I don't think I'm like in that same area.
Right.
But I think that I am now. Like for the first time with my writing, I'd feel so much better with reading. Like I've been rereading my stuff a lot. And I was just like, sometimes you got to remind yourself just who the hell that you are. Yeah. And that's like, it could be read as the ego thing, which is totally fair, but it's mostly just a self-confidence that I had been lacking for ages. Yeah. I had always like released something and I would never reread it because I was like, I hate the way that I sound when I write. Hell, I hated the way that I sound in my recordings, like my radio stuff. I would do a podcast and I was just like, I don't like my voice. I don't like the way that I write. People would be like, oh, this article's a heater. And I was like, cool, I'm not going to reread it. Like I did, even if it was good, like I was like, I can't bring myself to read it because I would hate the way that it would sound.
Wow.
Yeah. And now I'm at the point where I can read something and I feel so much better about how I sound. Like I've read that last article a few days ago. It may have not done a ton, but like I was reading it and I was like, man, I really said that. Like there was a line, and forgive me, I'm gonna be like self-admiring for a second. I'm gonna sound I sound like an asshole, but
no, we self-admire on this podcast. That's what this is for, bro. Come on now.
I had read a line. I had wrote a line, and I was just looking over it again. I was reading it briefly to make sure when I was going into it, like, okay, this is fine. This is fine. This doesn't read as anything glaring. But then I went back to reread it yesterday, and I found a line that somebody had highlighted on there because Medium, they allow you to highlight lines that are like big bars or whatever.
Yeah.
I said about Beyonce, I was exploring how her music exists, how her dominance and her vulnerability balance one another.
Right.
And I wrote, however, at some point, the character portrayal halted and either consumed the artist or revealed just how genuinely unstoppable B was. She was Aphrodite in the flesh and Ares in the spirit. Her presence was unshakable, and her delivery of the most beloved anthems made them scriptures. And I was like, oh my God, I wrote that?
Ooh, that's a bar, son. That's a bar. Come on.
I was like, what state of mind was I in for me to talk about Aphrodite and Ares? Like I didn't.
Ooh. But I goddesses and shit.
I wrote it and I was like, man, like this reads really well. And I couldn't believe it was me for a long time. And then I would go back to old stuff. I read the Lollipop blurb. People like Mano, he would give me feedback and he was like, oh man, that blurb was really good. or the top 30 songs I wrote about the Eve one and the Doo-Wop Kane song. It was like, those blurbs are really good too. My guy Jack said that. And
Yeah.
I went back and read them. I was like, these all read really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, for once, I don't feel like crap whenever I read my stuff. People will give me the gratification of letting me know when something was good, and it always feels good. But for a long time, like, I would get that gratification and it would feel good, but I wouldn't feel it myself.
Right.
And now I've finally gotten to the point where I can read my stuff and I'm just like, okay, like, these points read really well for once.
Right.
And I don't, yeah.
And that's something like I was telling you about, like, yo, your writing is fucking good. Like, you need to stop doubting your shit. Like, this shit's good. Like, you're coming up with great ideas, and like, you're executing on every single one. Like, no matter, fuck the retweets and all that shit. Like, the shit you're writing is good. Like, of course it gets better as time goes on, but the shit you were writing as a first time writer, like that, with no, like, you're not going to college and write and like learning how to like do any of that shit. Like, you're doing this on your own, like learning on your own, basically. Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, what you were doing.
I was just learning off of reading, and Jeff had told me, like, oh man, you need to read more books. And mind you, I did not read more books because I don't have a goddamn library or a Barnes and Noble nearby for me to go ahead and rent out all these books and then return it. But you know, I understood the point of what he was saying. It was like, listen, you need to absorb more content. You need to understand what makes these leads work, what makes these intros work, how these ideas come to be. How you can form these ideas into something much more beautiful to read. So with those first two articles that I released this year, I was able to look at these concepts as something stronger than what they were.
Right.
Like the one about the Forgotten Stars Lost in Time, where I wrote about Snoop, Dirk, all that. I had the idea and I was like, okay, this is a good idea. But I was just sitting with it because I didn't know where to start. I was like, okay, I know what I want to write. Same thing with the article that I released a few days ago. I was like, okay, I know what I want to write about. I know the blueprint of everything. I need to know how I need to start. And Brandon, he told me, he was like, listen, intros and leads are for suckers. Just write every. But he was like, sometimes I just write everything. He'll write the middle of it, and then the intro will come back to him eventually later. I can't do that because I feel like the intro has to seamlessly go into the rest of the stuff, because I can have the ideas perfectly for the body, but if the intro, like, I think that'll only make the intro harder for me,
right?
Because it won't seamlessly go into it. The intro has to perfectly go into the blueprint that I set out for it.
Right. Yeah, Brandon's a full-on psychopath for doing that shit. I don't know how anyone can even just do that. Like, I've never been able to do that in anything. Like, I literally have to start from the beginning on everything I do and then work my way to the middle. Like, what the I've never heard anyone do that. Like, do people do that?
yeah, people legit, they'll like they'll have everything that they want for it. They just need to start off with it. And they were like, instead of driving myself crazy, like, I know what I want to write for the body, so I'll write what I want for the body, and then I'll adjust it accordingly in relation to the intro.
That's nuts.
And I was just like, I can't do that. But with that one about Snoop and everything, I had the idea and I was just sitting on it. I was like, I don't know where to start. So I text David Drake. Love him. That's my guy. Shout out Phil Jackson Ayahuasca Retreat. Shout out to the New Music Tuesday. Shout out my guy David Drake, man. I was just sitting there with him and I gave him the idea that I had. And I expanded upon it. We started talking about different artists. I text him on my phone about it in a different session, and we start going on about more artists. We talk about Dej Loaf. We talk about Tink. We talk about Young Pappy. We talk about all these stars that are so big in their area.
Right.
But if, like, during that time, they don't fully translate how big they were until, like, streaming. There was that weird in between where the internet was still growing in terms of how kids were using it.
Right.
And the internet wasn't nearly the phenomenon that it is now with Vine. Like Vine influenced everything. TikTok does a lot of influencing now. The internet fully influences how we absorb music. But during that in between, there were the kids that were making the music, people that were using YouTube to its fullest potential, but the music industry didn't fully keep up along with it. These kids were making the music, but there were still artists that followed the traditional structure. Like, okay, we'll put it on Spotify and you could stream it there or whatever. But like importantly, they were like, okay, this is going to be on iTunes. You can find it in your stores. And, for kids like me, I was like, cool, I'm going to get it for free on Spotify. I'll listen to this in like a week.
Yeah.
And there were stars there were new acts that had a hard time adjusting to that. Like, and some people didn't. And some people died during that time. And they will never have that story told for them the way that it should. The Doe B's of the world, the Lil Snoops, the Young Pappies. Yeah. They exist in that time where, they were clearly stars. But, with the internet being the way that it was then, you couldn't fully translate it off of, the view count. But if you were there in that moment, you can tell when they were stars. Lil Peep was maybe the breaking point for that because, everybody was like, oh my gosh, I was listening to Lil Peep. But like, it wasn't the same. Like people couldn't sit here and boldface lie and be like, oh yeah, I was listening to Hellboy. Like you weren't.
No.
There are millions of people when he died, they were talking about him on Twitter. And I was like, okay, and of course you can mourn him. I don't want to sound like one of those people, but there was a big difference in what people absorbed as music. And that was, I think, the big transition, honestly, because then people like Juice WRLD, like people were a lot more struck by these artists because the internet was so much more prevalent at that point.
Right. Yeah, I was definitely not listening to Lil Peep like at all. Like I listen to him now, but like at the time, like when he dropped stuff, I was not just into that scene. I didn't even like Juice WRLD, and I love Juice WRLD now, but like my friend Paige, shout out Paige, she would always talk about Juice WRLD, and we're like, yeah, can you stop talking? We're like, we're not gonna listen to this motherfucker at all. Yeah. And then you listen to him, you're like, oh wait, no, he's actually really good. Like, yeah, you're missing out. So like I think people do exaggerate the seriousness of like when an artist dies, and then they're like, oh my god, like he was like he wasn't your favorite. You didn't really listen to him that much. Like you were still listening to fucking, whoever was hot at the time.
I think it's different now because like that can be 100% genuine now. But with artists like Lil Snoop, like they were stars, but you couldn't fully tell that off of the view count. But you could properly assess where he was going. He was so big, and he had the Meek cosign, and the fact that he only got to live with his with the success of his mixtape for only like 2 months is like one of the most saddening things. And people aren't going to talk about that because again, he lived in that time where, it was a transition. And during that tidal wave where the music industry was catching up and the internet was surging, some people will not, fully catch on to that wave. Like it took years for Dirk to, people again were saying, oh, 2020 was his year. He was on the Drake song, but like he was always there.
Yeah, he was always there. He was always popping. It just, for me, it didn't click until last year, I think. But still, like he was still popping, like 100%.
Yes. Yeah, and like it's some artists that just fell off in that time. Well, not like fell off, but they weren't as big as they were. Like Migos, they were huge with Versace, and they had Pipe It Up, but it didn't translate as much until Culture, because these were clearly moments, but those moments finally molded into something massive when Bad and Bougie came out. It took some time for them to become the generational artists that they are now.
100%. Yeah, there was hard work to that shit. Like now they can just drop anything and it's gonna sell. But back then they had to really put out shit that they like, that they knew people were gonna fuck with. Like Culture was one of my favorite albums in 2017. Like That's when it dropped, right? 2017.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a really good year.
Yeah, a really good year, and Culture was at the top of it. Like everyone wanted to do a verse with fucking Quavo.
Yeah,
everyone wanted Quavo on a goddamn album. I was so sick of it by that point, but like, it was like you let those dudes shine. Like they put the work in 100%, and that article really, encapsulated that. And I still feel bad that Rich Homie Quan didn't get the love he deserves. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
the self-reflecting album is fucking flame. I love that shit from 2018.
Yeah, it's some people that won't fully translate, and we always ask people like, oh, you people weren't giving the flowers and whatnot. You guys were telling the story and da. That's really up to us. Like it's up to like if you cared about him, it's up to you to carry on that legacy so that it doesn't go forgotten.
Yep, 100%, 1000%. I want to thank you for coming on this podcast. I'm very happy that I got to get you on this shit very early because people are going to know your story now and understand where you come from and how you work, because I've known you since the beginning of last year and all of the shit basically beforehand. So like all these stories that you're telling me now are pretty much most of the stuff I knew already, but I'm glad everyone else is going to be able to get to know you now because you are rising, you are coming up, I feel like me and you are kind of on the same wavelength when it comes to this writing shit and when it comes to the, trajectory of our careers. So I'm very happy to get you on, and also very happy you're wearing a Prince shirt right now. That's most important. Shout out to Purple Rain. I have a Prince shirt just like that in white. So I should have bought the black one. It probably looked better on me, but whatever.
Yeah, I think the white one seems a bit too jarring considering like the way that the design goes in. But I mean, thank you for having me. I had a strong feeling you were going to ask me once you had the idea for the podcast. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be on there. Definitely.
Oh yeah. 100%.
But thank you for having me. I've told like my upbringing, like people aren't it, a funny story. It's real quick, but
okay.
I was so used to telling people like the complicated nature. Like people will look at me and they're like, "Oh, look at the white boy," and it's like, again, you get used to it because I'm like, it's fine. Like obviously, I know my complexion. Like I think that self-awareness is something that someone like Logic lacks.
Yes. Yeah.
But
1000%.
And my big issue with him, and something that I always go ahead is that even if you are black and you have like that sort of, and you have that family where you can be like, okay, yeah, my family is black. Like, even if I got this very obvious Caucasian skin, like, okay, you still look a certain way and you can empower certain people to say the word when they shouldn't be.
Right.
And that's just the way that I've always went ahead. That, and you also tee the line of getting your ass whooped. But like you don't see someone like Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy, someone with long hair and has white skin. You don't know that his grandmother's Jamaican, his mom's black, but like you don't see him going around saying the N-word, even if he is black, because there's a certain self-awareness to it. But that's neither here nor there. I've grown so used to telling the story of like my family. I always had the pictures on deck to explain certain things. Mm-hmm. And there was one time where I showed it to someone. They were like, "No, you's a white boy," and I was like, "I can show you, bro." And I showed them the pictures. I showed them my dad, and I showed them my granddad. Which the granddad really surprised him. His eyes lit up a little bit. But then he proceeds to tell me, "Bro, you just took a picture of a stranger, bro. That's not your granddad." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Wait, so you expect me to keep a stranger on my phone?" It was like, "Yeah, bro, that's not your granddad." I was like, "Damn. All right, man. You either gonna believe me or you're not." Yeah, I got this from Google. Like, and, either you're gonna believe me or not. I could pull up my granddad's picture on Google too, but it wasn't that picture. But regardless, he was like, "No, wait, nah, bro, this is not your granddad. It's not your dad. You lying." And I was like, "Shoot, man, you're either gonna believe me or you're not." And that's just the way that I've always went ahead. Like I'll tell my story every time, and you can either run with it or you won't. I've just come to embrace just how complicated my life is,
right?
And how that
it's
story.
Definitely an eventful one, though.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I embrace everything that I am, and whether you believe me or not, it's up to you. But I know who I am at the end of it all.
It's a good bar to leave it off on. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you guys subscribe to Peeps with Tweets. Hopefully the podcast on Spotify works again, because I haven't checked in a little while, but it wasn't working a little while ago. But make sure you guys subscribe on all social media platforms, on all streaming platforms. Leave a comment, leave a rating, let us know what we can do, what I can do better with, who I should put on, all that other shit. So thank you guys for listening, and tune in for the next episode.
Yeah.
Peace.
After this, the price definitely gotta go up.